Today is a day, and I learned earlier today that an acquaintance that I went through training with at the job that I left recently was shot in the head and killed over the weekend. And this is an all too familiar Chicago story, U.S. story. And what really sucks about this story is not just the senselessness of another young person dead. He was 30. He just turned 30. He had 4 kids. I had spent a little bit of time with him. When we were in training, I had offered a ride to a couple of my teammates in training because there was a shuttle and I had my car with me. He actually, one of the notable things about him is he had this badass car. And it had a really cool, distinctive paint job. And I was like talking about how cool I thought his car was. And he didn't have his car with him that day, and there was a shuttle that came like an hour after they let us out, and I had offered a few people a ride back to the hotel because I'm like, it's 5 minutes away. Why should you wait when I'm driving? Might as well make better use of my fuel, you know? And then a couple of other times he was waiting for the shuttle, and I was like, come on, you know, ride with me. And I like spending time, even just those little bits of time with people like him. He was a young black guy from really difficult part of Chicago on the south side, and I've spent some time working with young men like him. And the reason I want to talk about him, his name was LaParish, is that I know that a number of people in the trucking community and people who watch my channel probably have a lot of different thoughts on these things than I do, and come from worlds where they hear a narrative about Chicago and they haven't spent time with the individuals that they might have these opinions about that are based on things that they've been exposed to in different news outlets. And it's very easy for people on the outside to hear statistics and to make assessments. But when you spend time talking with people as human beings, one-to-one, talking to a person, listening to a person, it changes your perspective. And he wasn't the only young man who had a real similar story. And sorry, I'm sitting on a side street here. I'm waiting to hopefully get unloaded. He was somebody who was doing really good in training and like automatically stood out as one of the more adept sort of natural drivers. And he was quiet and just sort of a humble confidence about him. And I remember like watching what he was doing because I could tell he was more natural at maneuvering than I am, and I wanted to learn from him. And in the brief time that I was with him in my car, and I actually had to go to Target. I was like, come along, you know, or you want to come with me? He's like, yeah. All right. I offered him a ride, and I said, I'm going to stop at Target. Is that cool? And he's like, yeah. And he came along with me, and we just chatted. And he wanted to get out. He wanted to get away from the violence. And I've heard this story other times with similar people who are trying hard to get away from these environments by working hard and doing it the right way. And that's what he was trying to do by getting into trucking. He was trying to provide for his kids. And he talked about wanting to move away from Chicago, from these violent environments where he had known all these people that got killed and family members, and then he just became another statistic. And the place where he was killed, I think he had told me he lived there. I can't remember for sure, but it's a neighborhood called Roseland. It's notoriously dangerous. When I was working for the delivery service, we used to deliver for this really great organization in the Chicago area called Cradles to Crayons, and they collect donations for needy kids of like clothes and toys and stuff and diapers and school supplies and everything, and we would deliver those items. We would collect them and deliver them. And one time I was working alone that day, and which wasn't that typical, but here and there, and they sent me to a place in Roseland that was a daycare to drop off a load of items for the kids at this daycare. And when you go to a neighborhood like Roseland, what you notice is it's like desolate. It's like you've driven an hour south or however far, but it's like you're on another planet, that the people that live there have nothing, and there are a lot of people who sit on the outside who've never been to a neighborhood like that, who've never talked to anyone who's lived in a neighborhood like that, and who maybe has a perspective like, well, the people that live there want it that way, or they deserve that, or whatever. And I just remember, and the people I worked for told me to be careful going there and to, don't leave the truck and whatever, because it's a dangerous neighborhood. But I just pulled up behind this daycare and started to unload the truck, and then there must have been like 20 little kids, and one of the daycare people told them, okay, help her. And they're like tiny kids. They're like 4 years old or something. And there's these huge kind of heavy bags, like big black garbage bags full of like clothes and stuff. And they just start grabbing these bags that are like 5 times bigger than them. And like the spirit of these kids sort of bowled me over. And it was a striking experience. It's the kind of place where white people don't go very often. It was like I was in a place that people like me don't go. And I could feel that by the way that the kids looked at me. And they were just these awesome, beautiful children in this desperate place, this dangerous place. The people that live in these neighborhoods are fucking people who deserve better. They deserve better opportunities. They deserve ownership. They deserve safety and consideration and care. And I wish that this story wasn't a familiar story, but it is. And I just am sharing it because I just want to encourage anybody watching this to think a little deeper about the human beings that are in these environments. When you hear stories on certain news networks or whatever that sort of paint a picture of a whole group of people as if they are one lone mind, and as if they somehow deserve the situation that they're in, like they've made it for themselves. I want to ask you to just think deeper and think harder about the infrastructure that exists in different places or doesn't exist, and the fact that we all are made of the same material. We're all just trying to get by and survive, and I'm really sad and sorry that this happened, but I'm also not surprised, because it's not a surprising story. It's an every single day kind of story. But I don't really know what else to say. I just I feel really sad that LaParish didn't get a chance to get away from the danger and provide for his family the way he wanted to.